Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
All right, we're picking and previewing a bunch of games here. That's all the second round of the college football playoff bowl games and some of the other interesting bowl games coming up over the next, I don't know what you call it, 10 days, somewhere between Christmas and January 1st or 2nd.
Yep. The next week. Yep.
Next week. It's going to be, there's a lot to cover here. We can't, I don't know. I think we're going to start with the playoff games?
Yeah, we're going to start with the playoff because the bowl games are, like most podcasts have talked about, they're too hard to predict because you don't know about the opt-outs. There's an opt-out tracker. You don't know about motivation. So it's just really hard to pick like what I'm going to be. Most of these games, I'm not going to tell if I'm interested in until after it starts. And then you don't, right? So anyway, I don't even, this year more than any other year because of the expanded playoffs, this is the least interested I've been in the other bowl games, just because for that reason. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll scan them. I have some notes on a few that I'm interested in watching, and just a couple that I think I'm going to bet on. That I have a rough idea from the opt-out tracker that most of the players are going to be there, and then some of the other ones. It's such a wild card because it's so hard to keep up with who's even going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But with
we
that said,
we should start with the recap, or no? We're just going to move on.
That recap is pretty bad. I mean, yeah, you might as well. I mean,
so we had the Tennessee Iowa State over, which we felt that was the one I felt the best about.
Yeah.
We had the Florida minus the 10.5, which was great because that was great. It's exactly, both those games went exactly how I thought those bets would go. So that was fantastic. UNLV minus 2.5. That was another good one, even though the Cal went to their backup QB or third or fourth string, even at one point. That was still a good one. We had Clemson, Texas under 51.5. Whatever happened to Clemson's defense, couldn't stop Texas ever. Tennessee plus 7.5. Ohio State just came out and completely dominated from the get-go, like the Michigan game never happened.
That bet had no chance by the end of the first quarter.
Yep. Most of these didn't have a chance by the end of the first quarter. The SMU plus 8.5 Penn State. Penn State decided to, there's a couple interceptions really killed SMU.
Yeah.
In that one. Indiana plus 7.5 Notre Dame. That was Indiana's offense just hasn't looked good against any good team. We talked about that. And then another Clemson plus 11.5.
Missed that by about 2.5. I mean, I thought that one was the one
still
that
had a chance. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of, not really, but it just out of all of the one, I mean, some of the other ones are a bit more of a leap of faith. I thought for sure Clemson could cover that number.
Yeah. No. And I think I don't know if people always say like I'd bet it again, like even after watching the game. And I think that there's, it still wouldn't have been a bad bet, but anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, even on a backdoor cover, if they're losing by 17 at the end of the game and just scored a meaningless touchdown to cover the 11.5, that's just, I mean, to me, they were the strongest of the visiting teams. So I thought the 11.5 was a very obvious. I mean, if anybody was going to cover, it would have been the more confident cover, but none of it worked. All right.
Yep.
Moving on to the second round. Shall I start here?
Please.
All right. So I guess we'll take these in chronological order, but Penn State versus Boise State. Do you have a play on this one? I have a question mark. I'm not sure. Do you have anything?
Start with your question mark.
The question mark is I don't know what to do with either the point total or the spread. I was looking at it, and after what just happened in the first round,
I know.
I mean, but the only data point that I think matters for trying to compare Boise State to any power team is their performance against Oregon. But Oregon proved to be a different team from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. I'm not so sure that if Boise and Oregon met at the end of the season, Oregon wouldn't blow them away by 35 points.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to make, but it was close, and Genty ran for a bunch of yards on Oregon.
Yeah.
So
no, I think this to me is I'm probably not going to bet it. If I had to, I would have done the teaser where I'd make it like Penn State -4 and then like under 57 kind of a thing, because I think both teams are going to want to run the ball. I don't think Boise State's defense is really going to be able to stop Penn State running the ball. And they'll only have to pass a little bit to keep them honest, which will decrease the number of possessions. So I felt my pick would be Penn State like -4 under the 57, like that both of them had to happen.
Tease it.
Yeah, but but no, but if I had to pick something, like I'm not going to bet it, but if I had to pick something, it'd probably be Penn State just lay the points, like, because I think that they, if no one's been able to stop Genty, I know that, but Penn State's defense is really good, and I think
Mhm.
if they know they get the key on him, I think that the game script's going to go where they're going to be down. I think Penn State's going to be up early, and then Boise's going to be in a jam where they can't run the ball to get back into it. So,
And UNLV has been one of our wagons, and we've
mhm.
watched them play Boise twice, and UNLV kept Genty at least somewhat under control.
Yeah,
Like he needed to run for whatever 38 or 39 carries to get 100 and change yards. I mean, he still got a
yeah,
decent run total against UNLV, but they did a pretty good job of keeping him kind of under control. And to a man, Penn State's personnel is much better than
yeah.
UNLV.
Well, and to that point, that game they kept Genty in check, but it was still close, so they could just
Yeah,
keep feeding them the ball, and then because most of his yards came later, like
yeah,
when the defense was getting tired and breaking stuff late. But I have a feeling that this game script is not going to let them get to that point. Like when you're down 2 or 14 points or 17 points or something
yeah.
like that. Like you can't just keep handing the ball off at that point. So, and I don't know if Boise's passing game is going to be enough to overcome Penn State.
Yeah, I don't know. And so if you had to bet, you're tending towards just laying the points with Penn
Yeah,
State.
yeah.
And if I had to bet, I would take the under.
Oh, really? Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not bad. This game. So the unders really scare me, especially in playoff games, because they can. I feel like in general they're pretty high scoring games. They're two accomplished teams and stuff, but it's not. This game would be the one to take the under because it's not like Penn State's passing game is that strong, and Boise's I don't think is that strong either. Both teams are going to want to run the ball, so the under that's a good lean too.
yeah. And the only common data point is they both played Oregon,
Yeah,
and both of those games were 60 plus points.
yeah,
So I have no idea what to make of that. I mean, that actually goes against my thought here of taking the under. So yeah, I'm staying away from this game entirely.
yeah,
We're obviously going to watch it with great interest, but I have
yes.
no idea what to expect. I'm assuming Penn State's going to win. I just can't
Yeah,
tell if it's okay. How about we do this? Both teams show up at their A game. Who wins?
Penn State.
Do you see it being a blowout in any scenario, or do you
Yes.
see? Okay, so you can see Penn State blowing them out.
Yep. Yeah, because I think that especially if Penn State goes up early and
Yeah,
then Boise gets in the position where they have to pass, I think that then they could get ugly fast.
right. And then, okay, last question. Maybe we'll do this with all these games.
Yeah, that's
Do
a
you
good idea.
see a way for Boise to actually win?
I don't really because I just think Penn State's a significantly better team. If Boise did win, it would be Penn State crazy turnovers.
Mm,
Um, and Ashton Genty is unstoppable, which is not out of this realm of possibility.
right. Yeah.
But really, like 200 yards rushing, Penn State has no answer.
Well, no one's actually stopped him. Even Oregon hasn't stopped him. Like
No,
he's going 150 plus yards every game.
right. But I'm talking 200, 250.
Yes.
Like just it's
Like Scatterboo type, like his last game. So yeah, I'm with you. In 95% of the scenarios, I have Penn State winning this game, either
Yeah.
a blowout or close, however it goes. If Boise were to win, I'm with you. Penn State has to have multiple self-inflicted wounds,
Yeah.
and Genty has to go off. I agree that I don't really see just a
No.
head-to-head Boise just beating them head-to-head. I mean,
No.
we could be dead wrong, but I don't. All indications would be that that's how it has to be. It's got to be self-inflicted wounds. All right, moving on.
Mhm.
Texas, Arizona State. I don't have anything here either. I mean, I'm tempted. I'm
it's a
tempted to
cr-
go Texas, lay the points
man.
with Texas. That's a
Yeah.
lot of points.
I know. Which do you think is because I was going to say, like, which do you think is a bigger mismatch, the Penn State Boise or Texas Arizona State? Because I felt like to me they're similar, but Texas is more heavily favored over Arizona State, and
I mean, you'd argue Arizona State's conference is overall just more talent.
yeah,
Like Arizona
Yeah.
State's facing more teams with more how you say 4-star, 5-star. I mean, I don't even know if there's any 5 stars in the whole conference, but more
Oh yeah.
higher rated players than Boise's schedule across the board. Now,
Yes.
Boise has faced the single most difficult team between the two of them. They played Oregon of all teams. So Arizona State does not have a data point where they've hung in against a national, like a top 5 team, but they've looked stronger and stronger as the year's gone on. Cover 3 had a good point that he just looks like a dog, their quarterback. Like he just looks like he's got some grit to him.
Yeah. Levitt, right?
Levitt and the blasting Iowa State. I don't know what to make of that. That was, man, I thought Iowa State put up a better fight than that. So,
well, and so to do your questions again,
yeah,
right?
Let's do
like
the questions.
If Texas has their A game, like they kill them, like because the defense is unbelievable, and Ewers and clicks with the passing game and stuff. Arizona State has an A game. I think they could kill them. Like, to be honest, like if the A game, like that's Scadaboo runs uncontrollable, Levitt gritty first downs, they keep track of the possessions. The Ewers has an average game, like he's good for some incompletions and incomplete interceptions as well, or like the running game suddenly disappears, which has happened before, So if
they both show up at their A game, Texas wins.
Yeah, if they both show up at their A game, Texas wins. But I mean, this one. So before the type of scenario that would have to happen for Boise to win is really far fetched. But for this one, it's far fetched, but not nearly as bad. Like it's the Arizona. I could see this. I could see Texas not playing well and Arizona State playing great. Like and having this be an entertaining game.
But it still requires Texas to let themselves down, maybe a couple self-inflicted wounds, or just not their A game.
Not their A game. I mean, they've looked like, and I think that this one too, Ewers, I think we might have talked about this before too, is not playing great. And it feels like he's still struggling with something or an injury or whatever. So I think the rest for Arizona State and the no rest for Texas is big in this scenario, more than other ones. So, because I think Arizona State is going to, and they have nothing to lose. Like they're not expected to win, and I still think the pressure's on Texas. So if Texas goes down early, I think that's it. Things could get tense there.
Our theory of the pressure being on the stronger teams didn't really work out last week.
True, but that was, listen, and all the credit to Ohio State. That's why I'm wearing this shirt today. I thought that the way things ended with Michigan, I thought that game could be pretty bad when they like if they went, and credit to them because the coaching staff, the players, like the whole team, like they came fired up, like that game never happened. It was like they started fresh, and it was really like, and they had the ego and the chip on their shoulder, like we deserve to be here, So
they were overwhelming. All right, well, hang on. But let's just stick with the Texas Arizona
State.
Right,
but the Texas game, like I haven't really seen Texas do that. So, but anyway, so I don't have a plan in the game either. If I'd be tempted to. God, I really just don't know. Like I was tempted to do the over just because of the playoff games, but Texas defense has potential to really shut down a team.
Yeah.
So I could see it being the under as well. It's just, and 2 touchdowns is just so much for the Texas,
it's just so hard to think. Like Scadaboo is so good,
yes,
but is it a reflection of the teams he's played against?
There's so many ways you can lose that bet. Like Texas could be up by 2 touchdowns, and then Arizona State scores a late meaningless, touchdown. Like that could absolutely happen.
All right, okay. So let's do the other exercise. So you can see Texas winning close or in a blowout.
Correct.
If Arizona State wins this game, how does it have to go?
I could. So then Ewers has an average game, like good for an interception.
A critical pick. Yeah.
Offense doesn't look good, and Arizona State goes up early, and has skipped Scadaboo's running well, and the pressure gets to Texas. So I think there's a few different ways, and I could see Arizona State, like there is a realm where Arizona State wins this one handily, like maybe injuries catch up to Texas, or that not having that week off or something. Like there's. Yeah. So I think there's a few different ways that this could go. So
this one's in Atlanta. It's just odd for the two of them to be traveling there.
Arizona, Texas, playing in Atlanta.
Yeah. I would have. There's none of these are at Jerry World. I'm surprised that's.
Yeah, good point.
Like I understand not putting them in Arizona because that's not necessarily fair.
Yeah.
For Arizona. And then Ohio State and Oregon in the Rose Bowl. That's just tradition.
That
That's
seems
I'd
good.
love to keep
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And then Notre Dame, Georgia in New Orleans.
That's fine.
That's fine too. It's about
Yep. It's like a Sugar Bowl type thing.
equal hassle for them both to get there. But this one just seems weird that you're shipping two teams across the country into the Eastern time zone. I just can't. I'm surprised that just isn't at Jerry World. I don't know. This odd. All right.
Again, similar to
probably
like
another game going on there.
Possibly. Also, you don't want to really give it. It's supposed to be a neutral-ish site, right? So
but I think they both appreciate a shorter travel.
Yeah, but in Texas would be
still though. That's really close for Arizona State too. It's just I get it. It's in Texas, but I don't know. Just it's odd that you're just shipping them multiple times across. Yeah. All right, moving on. Ohio State at Oregon. Well, at Ohio State versus Oregon in the Rose Bowl, going to look amazing.
Going to look.
I have no idea what. I hope they both wear dark uniforms. I don't know if they can, or it doesn't matters. But the Ohio State all scarlet looked cool.
It did.
Their least interesting uniform is when they're going silver pants and white shirt. It's just sort of bland. I hope they do something more bold because Oregon's going to show up with something crazy. All right, so that's just the aesthetic. Also, we've discussed on this show before, California produces uniquely beautiful settings and beautiful coloring. And my cousin is a director of photography in the TV and movie industry. And he said that it's called the golden hour in California, and LA area specifically produces an aesthetic that you just can't get in the rest of the country. And that's why the Rose Bowl specifically in the afternoon just looks better than every other game. And this is probably going to be the best looking.
Yeah, that hour before sunset is fantastic. The Rose Bowl is a great setting. It's great that they've got like two Rose Bowl teams,
Yeah, and it will look the best. It just always does. It's not shouldn't be any clouds. So I just know it's going to look amazing. All right. So do you have anything here? Do you have a bet?
I do.
All right. Finally, we got a bet.
I'm going to take the Oregon plus 2.5.
Yep,
I think that it's really tough because traditionally when they play the second time, the other team wins. And I think that, so it's tough, but I think that the Oregon, again, the bye, I think was big. And I think that emotionally that night game at Ohio State was a real high. And I think it's going to be really tough to match that again, for a week later. And I think Oregon's offense is good enough to handle the Ohio State's defense, which is not the case for Tennessee. So yeah, I think that, and I'm always concerned about that. We saw the best possible Ohio State offense last week, but we have not seen that consistently through the season. And Oregon's defense is good enough that if you're not having your A offensive game,
and I think they're full strength. They've got both. They've got their other end, Uyangale, and the I forget his name right now. But they have I think they're full strength. Like they've been struggling with some injuries, but everyone's back.
Yeah.
Pressure, I would say maybe you could kind of argue is not fully as bad with Ohio State after the way they put away Tennessee. Like it wasn't just a playoff win. They blasted them. They represented, I kind of saw the narrative that they represented the Big Ten versus the SEC as part of like how that kind of what that was. It wasn't just a win. It was showing up for that, the two mega conferences now. Yeah. And Ohio State totally put the SEC in its place, at least with the one representative that got Tennessee. So I wonder if maybe that overwhelming pressure that we least assume is on Ryan Day isn't quite as bad after showing up that good.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I think losing to Michigan for the 4 years in a row and then winning one playoff game and then getting bounced out the second and then having so many other teams, like 8 teams still in it, kind of a thing would still be bad. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it depends on what the game looks like too, right? So if Oregon kills them, then that's going to be bad. So,
all right. So I have Oregon plus 2.5, and I'm taking the over here.
Ooh, yeah,
There's no
that's a
data.
good
There's
call.
no data to suggest this is going to go under.
Yeah.
If Penn State could move the ball up and down the field at will against Oregon, there's no reason to think Ohio State's not going to. Ohio State did do that in their first matchup. That would have hit over. That first matchup would hit over this number 2. There's also no reason to think Ohio State can stop Oregon. That's probably the best at full speed when they're both going A game. These are the 2 best offenses probably in the country.
We just haven't seen it very often with Ohio State. We've seen it more with Oregon, but yes, like that's the
but they would have gone over. Their first game went over this number.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a big number. It's 55. It
doesn't matter. I don't see either of them holding the other one back for any length of time in this game if Ohio State shows up the way they did last time.
Yeah.
Which and also after this last week, my recency bias holding. If OSU's got itself sorted out and doesn't do whatever the hell they did against Michigan, which I don't think is a danger here at all. I think they're going to show up. We're just going to get, I think, kind of a bit of a track meet, and 1 or 2 key defensive plays, I think, are going to be the difference. The only other thing, okay, so then let's go to if both show up with an A game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's if both show up with an A game, we get a super entertaining game like the first one, like a 35-32. Yeah. Yeah, because it'd be, which is like the spread is right on it, So like that's both show up with an A game. They're both offenses are executing well enough against both 2 really good defenses, and but would win out. Typically the good offense can. So it's
okay. So between the 2 teams, do you see a blowout possible either way?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if it doesn't feel like it. I mean, if Ohio State has, if they do their offense like they did with Michigan or something, it could be really bad.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really see, it doesn't feel like this could be a blowout or either way.
Do you think there's an X factor player between the 2 teams that it's just head to head that one team's got this guy and the other team doesn't?
That the other team doesn't. That's a good question.
I think probably it's obvious.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
It's Dylan Gabriel. He's better than Will Howard.
I was going to say the defensive end for Ohio State, the 44, the Trutal, or what's his name? That was the.
I'm blanking on it too.
But that because I think when he's on is super dominant, right? And so if Ohio State's going to win this, their defense has to play good. And I think specifically they've got to be harassing Gabriel, because if he just has time to sit there and pass, they're going to lose. So, if he has like a 3-sack game or something that really disrupts it, then that's possible. Are you looking up his name?
No, I'm looking up the.
Let me look up his name.
I'm looking up the defensive end. Jordan Birch. So Uyunglele and Birch are 2 of the best defensive ends in the country, or as you want to say, as a tandem. I'd put them right up there with anybody for the 2 best defensive ends.
It was JT Tuimoloau.
Yes, right.
44. Because he had 2 sacks and 2.5 tackles for a loss against Tennessee. So that was going to be
I think they're very similar. They're very similar. I think the X factor is Dylan Gabriel. If you want to use the entire season as the sample and not just how good Will Howard played last week, Gabriel is the more accomplished quarterback. He seemed more poised. He was the difference the last time these 2 teams played. So if you're just going to hold everything equal, and they've got Tez Johnson back, so they have a game breaker at wide. They have multiple game breakers at wide receiver, just the exact same way Ohio State does.
Man,
but the facilitator,
you think the Ohio State receivers are in the same level as the Ohio State ones?
I mean, they're good. They're good. I mean,
I don't know.
They beat them.
Felt like
this team beat them.
Well, and I got you.
But to the point being, okay, let's just say Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith are if you want to go head to head, let's say that's they're some amount above the best that Oregon puts on the field. I think Dylan Gabriel is above Will Howard.
Absolutely.
But that difference in his consistency and his ability to make plays, it seems, and just find the right guy and dot the right guy every time is required, and his escapability. Like he's kind of what Ohio State thinks they have in Will Howard, but Gabriel's kind of doing it better. And he did it better the first time. It's not like they blew him out. That game was close, and just Will Howard's inexplicable game management at the end. They should have. It shouldn't have ended the way it ended.
No,
So
and
this is a pick 'em. I just think Gabriel might be a bit better than Howard, and that might
yeah,
be that alone might be the difference.
that's a hard exercise to do, like with the personnel and who would make a difference
Oh,
in this thing,
it's not
because on
obvious.
paper, Ohio State's roster is amazing. They're supposed like that.
Yeah,
That's
they
what
don't play the games
everyone.
on paper.
I know, but that's what going into the season, like that was the whole thing. They're like on paper, they looked unstoppable,
Yeah,
and they just haven't played like that. But when Jeremiah Smith has an unbelievable game, or Judkins runs for 150 yards, like
right,
you're like, well, of course they did, because like
right,
they're so. But yeah, they just haven't put it all together except for this one game against Tennessee, really.
right,
So
right. But and I would say they had a pretty damn good game against Oregon. Obviously, they were
yes,
neck and
yeah,
neck
but like
the
you
whole
said,
way.
the QB was not good with but anyway, but
Maybe
yeah,
I'm
that's
biased because we've had more samples of Gabriel playing well than Will Howard throughout the season. I mean, the
that's not
Michigan
called
game
being
was not
biased.
even.
That's called
Yeah,
looking at data. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the
We just have less data on Will Howard this season playing elite. Like,
that's not less. He just hasn't played elite. Like we have
well,
just
no,
as
I
many
don't even.
data points on Howard
But
as we do on Gabriel.
I almost
Because
consider the
Howard is not
Michigan.
as good.
I almost consider the Michigan game a non-point because I don't think they let him go. Like literally called that game without either that. I mean, I don't know. I'll
That's
say it that way.
interesting. That's okay. I'll give you that. When you say data point, usually it's like
Yeah, I know what you
someone
mean.
played
Yeah.
6 games instead of 12. It's right,
Mhm.
but they both
And
played
then
the season, but
and
it's
then I will say for the Will Howard detractors, he played bad against Penn State. They won, but it wasn't because of him.
yeah.
He
No, fair
tried
enough.
to give that game away. Whereas did Gabriel have a game that bad where you're like he was the liability?
That's a
Like
good question.
was he the liability in the Wisconsin game? I don't think so. They were moving the ball all over the place.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's gonna be really close. My guess is if Oregon wins, and I think either team can win this game. It's not obvious who's winning
Yeah,
this game at
absolutely.
all. I think it's going to be high scoring. And if Oregon wins, I think it's just Gabriel's going to make one or two plays more than
Yep.
than Howard does,
Mm-hmm.
and the defense might get one or two stops that OSU doesn't get. But if OSU wins, I think it'll be the exact reverse. Will
Yep.
Howard will come up with a couple of plays where like, oh, that's maximum Will Howard, and
Yeah.
the defense will get one or two plays above or beyond Oregon, and that's
I don't
it.
even know if Will Howard is going to have one of those two amazing plays. I think it could be like Trayvon Henderson or Smith, like just making unbelievable plays. Like, and he's just still doing the ball distributing thing. Like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be happening. Like I could see, but
I see what you mean. Yes. Okay. So you're saying
like
it
I
doesn't
could
even
see
have to come down.
Howard doesn't actually pass for a lot of yards, but Abuka and Smith both have 100 yards receiving each, and then Henderson and Judkins
Yeah.
both have like almost 100 yards rushing, or like I could I could
guess,
see him being
yeah.
like the fifth best offensive player.
Okay. I see what you're saying, right? I see the fronts as being good enough on both sides that it will all come down to the decision making and the capability of the QB.
It should. You're right about that.
So that's all I'm saying. Like it's not. Anyways, I just see
I
see it being the quarterbacks versus the fronts is kind of where I see this game coming down to. All right, moving on. Man, we've got a lot to go here if we're going to pick any of these bowl games. Notre Dame versus Georgia in the Superdome. Like we said, the travel there is not terrible for you. It's about the same hassle for both teams. I'm assuming both teams' fans will show up. It's typical of these teams, the fans to show up.
Yeah.
These look like mirror images of each other. We talked a little bit about this last episode. Carson Beck, it's confirmed it was the UCL and he had the surgery, so he's done.
He's out.
I'm thinking he's coming back next year because his stock has dropped drastically. I don't think it's smart for him to come out. He might
probably
need to.
Good idea.
He might need to show them that he's healed from the UCL.
Yeah.
Even though Brock Purdy did, it's not obvious. It's not obvious he will respond the same. So I think he needs to put in a whole season post UCL and show up better than this season. Anyway, so that's we're done with the Carson Beck talk. We're on to Gunner Stockton. I mean, the odds makers still have UGA favored by 2. I have here. I don't know what you're seeing. I mean, how do they even set this line with Stockton with all of half a game of data on him?
Right. Yeah, I think that. So do you have a pick in this game?
I just have Notre Dame +2. I'm just going with
what we
know.
Okay.
We just go with what we know.
I'm going Georgia -2 all day long. I think it's like,
Really?
it's
We
not
got a
even close for
lock
me.
fight here.
We got a lock fight, and
Okay.
the reason is because I think that, again, I'm big on the buy, like, for this stuff in this type
Mhm.
of situation. Stockton has had the reps with the ones for over 2-3 weeks now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a
they've
good point.
made all the adjustments they've needed to make in terms of the offense and everything like that. If they've changed in the offense in terms of, like, trying to find things that are for Stockton's strength versus Becht, then that'll be all stuff that Notre Dame hasn't seen or anyone has seen before for this season,
Yeah,
right? So
that's
they've
true.
had time to add stuff. I think Notre Dame, both teams are similar in terms of, like, good defense, control the ball, like, running stuff. We thought Georgia would have a more dynamic offense going in the season, but they haven't had that.
Do we
But they
know? Do we know is ETN healthy for this? I think he is.
don't know, but it's been long enough that I'd be surprised if he's not playing.
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, they're both similar teams, just Georgia's a bit better at it. Georgia's defense, I believe, is a bit better than Notre Dame's defense. And I think Georgia's offense is a little bit better than Notre Dame's offense. So to me, this to me was Georgia all day long, even with the backup quarterback. But I think Georgia's a better team.
Also, Georgia's the samples we have and the data points we have against stronger teams. Georgia's beat Texas twice.
Yeah.
They've beat Clemson. They beat Tennessee. They beat Florida. I mean, they beat teams that are stronger
Really
and
good.
multiple
Yeah.
teams that are stronger than anything Notre Dame has faced. Notre
Yeah.
Dame's best win was what their most recent win. I mean, I don't know what is really their best win.
I don't know,
So
and again, I think the buy is big in this situation. I think a lot of people are beat up and stuff, and then to have a rested, like, defense and yeah, no, I think this is, to me, it was Georgia all day long.
all right, so let's do the exercise. If Notre Dame wins, how's it going to look?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Stockton has a complete blow up game, like
Yeah.
like an early interception, and then mentally gets really rattled, you
Yep.
know. And the offense really struggles, and Notre Dame is able to control the ball on offense enough where Riley Leonard has a good game, running and passing. They really make use of the Notre Dame's running backs. That there is a place where I think would be really low scoring game. I think it could be like Notre Dame 17-14 or something like that. But that's how I see Notre Dame doing it. But I think that's going to be tough.
So I'm assuming the defenses are similarly, the strength of the defense is similar. Georgia probably has a few more NFL caliber players, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think Notre Dame's kind of all right there. Notre Dame's run game is really rounding into form. And we did see Georgia Tech run all over Georgia. And Riley Leonard's a big, strong running QB. I wouldn't be surprised if the Notre Dame coaching staff co-ops some of the style of what Georgia Tech was doing. I don't know how realistic it is to install plays that aren't really your plays within a week. But I mean, if there was a map for doing it, the Georgia Tech game's part of that map for sure.
Yep.
Is especially because it fits what Notre Dame has. Notre Dame does not have a dynamic passing game, but they can run. And Leonard can run like Tebow style run. He's big. Like if in a one game winner take all, which is this is it. Like you win or you go home.
Yeah.
I can see how they look at that thinking it was pretty effective what Georgia Tech did to them. Let's work off of that as part of our script here.
I love how you're the what happened last week. I'm going to make the bet based on that, and so you're skipping the Texas game. So you're going two games back against Georgia Tech. Pick this one.
I'm betting because I just don't believe Stockton's going to show up and be that good.
Really,
I'm betting that Stockton will make a critical error somewhere in here.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah,
well, I think he threw an ugly pick against Texas. I'm sure he's good for another one of those. Also, I kind of like his style. Like he just kind of went for it, but that also got him. I still think he's like reeling from a concussion. He got blasted.
Yeah,
he
did
cold.
get blasted.
Did you see that picture where his eyes were rolled in the back of his?
No,
his
I didn't
eyes?
see that.
There's an ugly picture of him on the ground, leg underneath him, like Family Guy style. You know, like Peter, like Lance, and his eyes, like you just see white. And
Oh,
it was just that moment when he just got blasted there down in the red zone, and then Beck had to come back in. So there's no way he's feeling fully proper after getting hit that hard. I know it's a couple weeks ago, but man, he got lit up. So and he just doesn't have enough experience. So I'm just guessing that Notre Dame's gonna give him enough pressure, and that front can pressure.
Yep.
So it's not like
Notre Dame's defense
their
is good.
strength is going to lead. Okay, so for Notre Dame to win, if Notre Dame wins, I think their front is going to give him enough trouble that just, I'm sure he's the highest rated whatever in college and broke everyone's records and all that stuff.
High school.
I mean, sorry, in high school. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a reason why he's on Georgia. He's a highly rated recruit.
Very highly rated recruit.
And he can run, and he's got moxie, and he showed it in that game. And he boosted the team when he showed up too. But I think Notre Dame's front is good enough. They're going to give him enough stress that somewhere in there they might force a couple of critical mistakes, which he also made in the Texas game, but got away with it. That's how Notre Dame has to win, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
I think they have to force some mistakes out of Stockton.
Yep. Really good defense, force some mistakes, and able to control the ball running it, which is in the realm of possibility. Very true.
And they can and potentially co-opt some of Georgia Tech's philosophy of running, because they have the personnel to do it. Love is running like crazy, and Riley Leonard can run. So how does
I felt the same way about the Georgia, like even if Etienne's not 100%, like that other freshman they had was really good too. So I think they're
was it Fraser?
Running.
Yeah. Their running back room is deep, but I'm pretty sure Etienne finished the last game. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in this game.
Well, I think so.
Unless he got hurt while they were training for this, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be there. So what do we think? How does Georgia win the game?
Yeah, I think Stockton plays well, like doesn't blow up. Okay. Like he's the ball distributor, hands it off. George is running the ball well. They don't turn it over, and he passes enough to keep them honest. Right.
Yep.
So and Georgia's defense overwhelms, is the best defense Notre Dame's seen all season. And it overwhelms them at the point of attack in terms of disrupting the running game of Riley Leonard, which is going to force them to have to pass, and which is not their strong suit. So
basically follow the NIU model which I just can't believe they lost that game.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it's going to have to be. And
I think it's in the point that you brought up earlier, like Georgia's played like Texas twice and Florida and Bama and stuff, and Notre Dame is not seeing that.
Just
level.
Haven't seen this kind of
level, and because Indiana is not it. Like they're a really good 10-win up and coming team, but like not the same.
The only other thing, based on all of that, again, the data points just aren't good because Notre Dame just doesn't. Their schedule at the beginning of the season looked like it should have been tougher than it was. Yeah. But like even USC just had such a down year. But with that said, at the end of that game, USC was moving the ball all over them through the air.
Yeah,
but that's just not Georgia's strength. So it's Georgia being limited in the pass game, and especially with the receivers can't catch.
If Stockton looks above average, then this game could be out of reach quickly.
Well, who's going to catch the ball? Nobody.
Yeah, I know.
The receivers drop the ball that's what they're paid to do. So it's the one thing that Notre Dame looked like towards the end of the season could get got on passing. I don't think Georgia can do it well enough here. So I think it's going to be a rock fight in general. I think it's going to be a grinded out rock fight. So you actually think Georgia's got this one?
Yep, I feel good about that.
Do you see a blowout either way?
I could see Georgia blowing them out. I have a hard time seeing how Notre Dame would blow them out. But
I was thinking the reverse.
Yeah, I feel the same as you. I think what we agree on is the rock fight. Like I think both teams would want to do the same thing. I just think Georgia's going to be better at it in terms of like running the ball and stopping the other team.
I guess I can't get it out of my head that a guy's not just going to step in the playoffs and play that well. But then Cardell Jones did it for Ohio State. So. Well,
and they've had a lot of that's a lot of practice time.
Yeah,
right?
that's a lot of practice reps.
Part. That's one of the biggest things that's tough to be a backup in college is because the starter gets all the rep with the ones. Yeah. But as soon as you had something like this happen, that's 2 weeks plus where it's like he's getting first team reps for so it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And especially if there's something that he's good at that Beck wasn't, that they could add like a wrinkle or something, and now like that's going to be good. So,
all right. Well, that was okay. So, all right. Well, that's where we're at with it. So we're in complete opposition on this game. So we'll see what happens there. I think we should just leave it there for that, and maybe pick up the other games on a separate episode.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. And again, with the other bowl games, like there's some that I'm interested in, but it's so tough to tell with the opt outs and who's going to be motivated and stuff. So
yeah, that'd be too much to cover here. So we'll check back in with us. We're gonna pick.
Maybe that'll be our next one when we get together in person when we do our recording. Maybe we could do that then.
Well,
or is that maybe too late?
Okay. I think it might be too late. I don't know.
All right.
We'll check back. We're gonna have it on. We're gonna pick the rest of the games in another episode.
Okay.
Catch you later.